Welcome to Rewatch and Rank. On this channel, we rewatch older TV shows, provide a summary and opinion on the episode before ranking each episode against each other. Today's episode is Bleach, Soul Society, the Sneak Entry Arc, episode 36, Kenpachi Zaraki Approaches. Episode in a nutshell is a brief reminder what happened in the episode. So basically this episode starts where the last one left off, where we're briefly glimpsing Ichigo and company being kind of pressed down by the pressure of spirit force coming from a silhouetted Kenpachi Zaraki in the distance. Before we move on to Hinamori, who of course we saw in the last episode making an absolute fool of herself in her emotional instability that came with Aizen's death, and now she's sitting all depressed in a cell, and that is when Rangaku comes and basically admonishes her for her behavior, basically leaving Squad 5 in the lurch. They've lost their captain, now their lieutenant's in prison. She talks about how, she should reflect on her actions and whether she had to take the actions that she took at that exact moment that has led to this. Of course, I would have, if I was doing the admonishing, added on the fact that Kira also has now been imprisoned for doing nothing more than trying to stop her from doing something that she shouldn't have been doing in the first place, because I think that is a grave injustice. But I digress. She gets basically rightfully admonished for her behavior, and then Rengoku basically tells her that Kitsugaya managed to find a letter addressed to her from Aizen and leaves it with her in the cell. Hinamori then reads it, and basically Aizen voices over that, oh, if you're reading this, I'm probably dead. Here's the truth I uncovered that made me a target. And she gasps, and we as the audience are left in the dark. And then basically the rest of the episode is Ichigo and Kenpachi interacting with each other. It's basically Kenpachi's hype episode, he's so strong, look at how much spirit force he has, you can't even cut him with your blade. He gives him a free shot, doesn't work because he's just so much stronger, and he waited there for days to fight Ichigo, and then it's just disappointing because Ichigo is thoroughly disappointing. His spirit force isn't bad, but his stance is rigid and he's left himself full of openings. His friends are able to continue on because obviously Kenpachi was waiting for the strongest of the group of Yoka, which was Ichigo. And then Ichigo just kind of disgraces himself by being completely panicked and having an internal freakout, which I think is just making him weaker. And we basically end the episode on him, again, thoroughly panicked as their fight is about to start. So now that we've been reminded about what happened in the episode, we'll now rank the episode. As always, we'll be ranking on the mostly objective ranking list, which uses set values to determine the score, and then the personal ranking list, which uses my opinion to determine the score. So on our mostly objective rank values, there really wasn't much to say. Hinamori was rightfully admonished, but that didn't really have much by way of scoring value for the mostly objective rank values. And we were kind of left on a cliffhanger with regards to the note, which was a bit of a setup. The main thing that we could score in this episode positively, I felt, was our multi-arc supporting character development, and this of course had to do with Kenpachi. We learn how much spirit force we have. We learn that his bloodlust is sharp like a knife, and Ichigo even hallucinates himself being stabbed due to the strength of this bloodlust. We also get some flashback to Ikaku's warning of Ichigo about how powerful and strong Kenpachi is. I said this in the summary. This was his hype episode. It was all about how strong he is and setting him up to be, you know, a very difficult opponent for Ichigo to beat. But there was a negative, and that, of course, was the fact that it was a recap or setup episode, and this is, of course, the hyping up of Kenpachi to set up for the future fight, and then the letter that Hinamori opened, which is setting up some terrible gasp-worthy secret that we as the audience aren't allowed to know yet, because it left us on that cliffhanger. Either way, that is worth -1 points, which leaves this, regrettably, as a 2 out of 10 episode on our mostly objective rank values. And so our mostly objective ranking so far has in first place Enter the World of the Shinigami, The Man Who Hates Shinigami, Assemble the Gotai 13, Formation the Worst Tag, The Resolution to Kill, Renji's Confrontation, The Star and the Stray Dog, 14 Days Before Rukia's Execution, The Tragedy of Dawn, Aizen Assassinated, The Darkness Which Approaches, Penetrate the Center with an Enormous Bombshell, Orihime Targeted, Release the Death Blow, Break Through the Shinigami's Encompassing Net, Kenpachi Zareki Approaches, and then Miracle, the Mysterious New Hero, is in 16th place. Now, luckily, we have the personal ranking because okay, this episode wasn't the best episode, to be honest, but I think it does well in setting up for the future episodes, at least the fight. I really like that it is a hype episode for Kenpachi because he is one of my personal favorite characters. Also, while there is a great many epic fights in Bleach, this fight between Kenpachi and Ichigo is one of, in my opinion, the most memorable. And the reason it's the most memorable is that it is one of my personal favorite fights, if not my favorite fight in the series. It could just be because it was the first major fight that we came across, and that's why it stuck so much for me, even among all the other epic fights that will come in the future. But I really like the fight between Ichigo and Kenpachi. It's what I've been waiting for this entire arc to happen, for them to meet and have their fight. So the setup for that, for me, has a lot of like excitement and anticipation tied up into it. So I enjoyed that. I did enjoy that Hinamori was at least partially admonished for her behavior. I mean, like I said, they should have also admonished her for getting her friend in trouble when all he was doing was trying to stop her from being foolish because she was foolish, and they point out how foolish she was, but not the consequences that an innocent or otherwise innocent bystander is now facing because of the actions that she took foolishly. So not a fan of her, but I did like to see that she got some consequences, even if it was just an admonishment that was rightfully deserved. So, even that's a positive for me, though not necessarily something I would consider important. I do like how they also used Ganju and Hanataro as, well, when Kenpachi is like pressing down his spirit force, Ichigo is affected, but a lot less so than both Ganju and Hanataro especially literally loses consciousness and ends up drooling on the floor because of how intense it is. So it does use that to kind of highlight Ichigo's strength as compared to his other companions. And then we also get some, oh, I can't remember her name, but his lieutenant with the pink hair, the pink one, we get some interactions with her, and she basically is acting like the encyclopedia. She's explaining why Ichigo cannot cut Kenpachi, and you know that Kenpachi is doing there, and they have this like cute little banter. And I do like the interactions between Kenpachi and his lieutenant because they do. I think they have a great. What's the word I'm looking for? Well, banter, but there was another one I was looking for. I can't think of it at the moment though, so we'll just stick to banter. They have a great banter with each other, which is also fun to watch, and a little bit on the comedic side, which of course, again, positive feelings. I ranked this one high, not necessarily because things happen in it, but because overall the episode gives me very positive feelings. And that is why I gave it an 8 out of 10. And that brings the personal ranking so far to, in first place, The Resolution to Kill, Enter the World of the Shinigami, Kenpachi Zareki Approaches, Miracle the Mysterious New Hero, Formation the Worst Tag, Penetrate the Center with an Enormous Bombshell, Renji's Confrontation, The Star and the Stray Dog, Assemble the Gotai 13, 14 Days Before Rukia's Execution, Release the Death Blow, Break Through the Shinigami's Encompassing Net, Tragedy of Dawn, The Man Who Hates Shinigami, Aizen Assassinated, The Darkness Which Approaches, and Orihime Targeted is currently in 16th place. And that now brings us to the series ranking so far, where we have our mostly objective ranking. First arc ended with 84%, and then the current arc is at 118 out of 210. On the personal side, the Agent of the Shinigami arc ended with 63%, and Soul Society the Sneak Entry arc currently only has 94 out of a possible 210. But as I hinted, the big episodes worth the big points should be coming up, so that should change. And with that, we've now rewatched and ranked Bleach, Soul Society, The Sneak Entry Arc, Episode 36, Kenpachi Zareki Approaches. Like and subscribe if you'd like to, and I'll see you in the next episode.